Hey guys, Michael Furlong here from Rentroll Maximiser, and I have the absolute pleasure of chatting to a good friend of mine, longtime friend, Mark Appleby, Managing Director of Buckmaster Hawkey, Melbourne's probably most established, oldest. I'm going to say, we're both graying on the top there, Mark, so we're both the oldest. Hello, my friend, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Yes, we've been around since 1981, so we are the longest established. You're correct.
I'm going to keep calling you the oldest. We're talking a little bit about today around the issues around staff shortage. Mainly, now both you and I work predominantly in the Melbourne market, or Victorian market, but you're more Melbourne centric for recruitment, both permanent and also temp staff. I want to just cover, if I can. I know I've been in the industry 20 years. You the same. The expectations of staff 20 years ago to, say, 10 years ago to 5 years ago to today. What have you noticed is there's significant changes? Now, what do you normally recruit for? Is it sales, property management, recruitment, support? What do you normally recruit for?
Look, largely our bread and butter is a lot of property management roles and also support roles to that. So leasing assistant, property manager, admin, trust accounting, bookkeeping, pretty much anything that's non-salesy, although we do entry-level sales type positions, but that would be our bread and butter. Okay.
Reception?
Yes, absolutely. So entry-level, anything that's sort of salaried, any role that has a salary rather than just being a commission only tends to be where we spend most of our time, but particularly in property management, not just residential, Michael, commercial as well as owners corporation. Okay. So all those types of roles, portfolio managers and all those three property disciplines and associated support roles.
Now, you mentioned previously that you also work with developers, project managers, and obviously you've got real estate sales. Tell me a little bit about the sales. How's that changed? So from, say, 20 years to 10 years to today, do you recruit much for sales? Is there a need?
Excellent question. We quite often get asked about finding good listing selling agents in traditional residential real estate. And the reason we don't do a lot with that, Michael, and never have, is because any good listing selling agent, if they're in the market, a lot of them have never needed a resume because they'll either approach who they want to work for, or if they've got their name all over auction boards in the suburb they do real estate, they're headhunted by their competitors to catch up and have coffee. So there's never really been the need for them to have a resume, let alone a recruiter. But it's different with project sales, and the reason for that is project sales, working for a project marketer or a developer, is not territorial. So if you in residential sales build your brand in a given suburb, after a number of years, it becomes more about Michael Furlong as a sales agent than the brand he works for. Hence, you don't need a recruiter. If you're doing project sales, you could be at a project in Werribee in the morning, Lilydale in the afternoon. You're not building a personal brand in a given location. So we do a lot more in the project sales space than we do in residential agency.
So project, that would be the apartment market, which was very strong in Melbourne, not so much now. Or is it still, Mark? Is it?
No, it's not. No. It's certainly not what it was, Mark. You're right. When they made the changes a couple of years ago, and the apartment market, and the CBD is a completely different sort of industry from what it was, say, 5 years ago. So anything where it's new that's off the plan, whether it's house and land
subdivision
developer, we do those, or whether it's working for a spec home builder, because it's then the reason we have more involvement with those roles is we'll get clients and candidates to engage us, or candidates register with us to help them get roles in that, because they aren't being headhunted necessarily or approached by their competitors. I'm sure it happens in the building, the new builder world to a certain degree, but largely it's that territorial base of residential sales agents with their own brand and profile is historically why we've never done a lot in that space.
So if it's predominantly or mainly the property management side of things, have you seen that the expectation is different now than what it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago on a property manager?
Yes, definitely. There's a couple of things that have shifted in my tenure. The first thing is the size of the portfolios. 20 years ago, it wasn't uncommon for a property manager to be managing 200 properties end to end.
Yes.
There may be some admin support. So what I've noticed is the number of size of the portfolios have decreased. The average now, I would say, is probably between 160 to 170. And then sometimes there's support roles like leasing consultants. The other thing that's changed in the expectation is technology and people's ability to embrace it. That's really been a game changer for particularly those agencies, Michael, that embrace technology and utilize it. So people are now expected to be able to pick up an iPad and know Inspect Real Estate or Inspection Express or those sorts of things. So those are probably two of the fundamental things that have changed. What hasn't changed is the expectation of the hiring manager wanting an experienced person.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's just go back. You've thrown something to me which I really wasn't aware of, but it sort of ties in. You're saying that the portfolios have dropped significantly. That's 25%.
Yes.
So they've dropped. But technology, there's an expectation that where the property managers are more familiar with technology and more adapt to technology. Technology is supposed to make us work more.
It is.
So it looks like it's reversed.
It is. I think the around it, the philosophy is that 20 years ago, a property manager doing 220 properties is probably stressed out of their brain and not keeping up with their routine inspections. Not necessarily available to their landlords to have conversations and relationships, and being more reactive, just putting out smoke fires, and dealing with problems as they come in. So by having less properties, you're able to service your clients better, armed with technology to be able to make your job more efficient as well. So I think it comes back to the quality of service that the property manager should then be able to deliver to the landlord should be better now than it was 20 years ago.
And that's where I was going to head with, Mark. I think the expectations, what's driven that is the expectations from your clients, customers, your landlord tenants and your landlord customers and your tenants as well. There's a greater expectation. And I think what I've found over those years also is that we're providing much more service, many more services, smoke detector, landlord's insurance. We're doing, video inspections, open for inspections now, more virtual. All of that is now more customer focused. If we just have a look at the way the world was 20 years ago, we still went to the bank when we would want to go and get money. We still went to a travel agent when we wanted to travel. Everything's now online.
Usually, look, 20 years ago, Michael, to some of our real estate agencies are a little bit slow in taking up technology. We were still faxing resumes. So some of them didn't even have emails. So yeah, it shifted a lot.
Fax. What's a fax, Mark?
I don't know. I disabled our fax number 3 years ago when we moved offices.
I don't even have a landline. I haven't had a landline for probably 8 or 9 years. Talk to me a little bit about the expectation from a recruiter or not a recruiter, from a person who's recruiting around what's expected now of a candidate. They're expected to know what. One of the things I'm talking about more from a property management point of view, that they're expected to know their technology, their customer service. We're just sort of shuffling the decks on the Titanic, aren't we, Mark?
Look, we are. Look, legislation, I think they need to have their head around. VCAT, for example. I think definitely all the day-to-days of if we're talking about residential property managers here, the experience is highly sought after, and the experience sets where a candidate has faced a number of given situations. So that is an expectation when clients, a hiring manager says to me, I want experience. It doesn't mean I've been in a portfolio for 5 minutes. That means I've been in a portfolio for probably at least 18 months, and I've been to VCAT because I've had to. Good property managers, as you know, don't often have to go to VCAT if they negotiate their way out of it. So technology, legislation, experience, VCAT, those are sort of the expectations that a hiring manager wants to see if they're going to hire an experienced property manager. And then, of course, all the other important things like cultural fit, presentation. And another biggie is job moves or stability in a candidate's work history.
Yeah. If you see 6 months, 3 months, 3 months, 6 months, it's just next, isn't it? And the other thing, Mark, which is probably influenced more now than it ever has, and will get worse, I think, and that is the impact around social media and LinkedIn and Instagram. How does that influence now, say, recruitment compared to a couple of years ago? Because I think people are now really focused on their personal brand.
Well, it's a great question, Michael. LinkedIn, as you know, is very much more the professional tool, and it's basically somebody's resume. So if we're looking at LinkedIn and we're sourcing candidates through that methodology, it shows a person's work history. So in a way, it replaces a resume. So that's always been kept relatively professional. The personal side of the social media, when we register candidates, is we say to candidates, now that you're putting yourself in the market, you are now going to be potentially researched by a potential hiring manager, having a look at what sort of things you're putting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those sorts of things. So you need to be very mindful about what message you're telling your future employer about your habits and behaviours.
Yep. And also your political aspirations, your religious aspirations, all those sorts of things. Those are the sorts of things I can recall. If you're going out and you're supporting, I can recall many years ago on draft night, a young fellow who was drafted to Carlton Football Club, but had been on social media and was really quite derogatory towards Mick Malthouse at the time, the coach, and then all of a sudden got drafted, and it was brought up that he was drafted to the club, and I look at that, and I know when we're in the football environment with my young son, they were talking about, you need to make sure you clean up. You don't want to have any of that stuff that's sitting in there. Keep your views to yourself, because people will go back through and troll through your social media. It's the same thing for jobs.
Absolutely. And I've even had a situation, Michael, where we had a candidate that was on a television reality show. The client, about 3/4 of the way through the recruitment process, discovered this. Quite a conservative culture this organisation was. They didn't like what they saw, or the fact that that person had been on such a show, didn't believe that type of person would be a good fit for their business. Like I said, that was a pretty conservative type of culture, but that's an example of something that's readily available out there. That's a little bit of another extreme, because it's more than social media, but that goes to show, by going on that TV reality show, that candidate was not a fit for that particular organisation.
Yeah. Mark, thank you very much for chatting with us today. I think we are not going to solve the first world problem that we have in the real estate sector at the moment, which is we just can't find enough quality staff, and those that are out there, I guess they've got the jobs just sort of on a platter, haven't they?
They have. The world's their oyster. If you're a good, solid property manager with stability in your background and credible referees, you can command as many job offers as you might want to chase.
Yeah. Mark Appleby, Buckmaster Hawkey, which is buckmasterhawkey.com.au. For anyone that's looking at either wants to have a confidential chat with you about their career from a candidate point of view, but also for an agency principal or franchise manager, or someone who's looking at engaging with a group that is really keen to understand their business, get in touch with Mark. Thanks, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Michael.